A count from 12th century England accidentally ends up in the modern world, where he meets his descendant who resembles his beloved. In 12th century England, the Earl of Warwick pays a visit to an infamous witch and her coven. Bursting into the witch's humble abode, he intimidates her, accusing her of sinful acts against God, but offers her a chance at survival under one condition. The Earl goes on to say that a French count is about to marry the daughter of the king. However, he believes he is the one meant for the princess, so the wedding must be stopped. So, the Earl commands the witch to be present at the banquet the following night, and must kill the count then. The man offers the witch some gold, but she must first convince him of her capabilities. The witch proudly wages her magic upon her boiling cauldron, summoning a fierce dragon to emerge from it. Horrified yet assured, the Earl hardly tosses the gold and makes his leave. However, he reminds the witch to carry out the plan or she'll be burned at the stake. The following morning, Count Thibaut Malfait and his entourage travel to the kingdom for his wedding. As his whole family sits in their carriages, the Count's measly valet, André, travels by foot, since he's not a nobleman. He tries sitting at the very back of the carriage, but the Count's father kicks him off, reminding him that he's a peasant. On the way to the castle, they encounter a band of men pillaging a woman's property. Bound by their ancestral code of honor, Thibaut jumps into action, believing that courage is his creed. Meanwhile, his family urges André to help his master. He immediately obliges, but he remains hidden behind a tree and only assists Thibaut by warning him about the imminent attacks. Soon after, Thibaut successfully finishes off the pillagers, and they head to the castle. Although he seems invincible in his every pursuit, he remains a mortal man, susceptible to the forces of sorcery and magic. Upon arriving at the castle, Thibaut catches a glimpse of his future bride, Rosalind, so he immediately strikes up a conversation with her. Flattered by his words, Rosalind guides him to a private corner where she presents him with a locket containing a lock of her hair. They lean in for a kiss, but they're disrupted by Rosalind's maid, who insists that kissing is forbidden before marriage. That night, the grand banquet begins. As Thibaut feasts with the other guests, he tosses his leftover morsels behind him, which André and the other humble peasants thankfully collect to eat. Meanwhile, the witch pours a special concoction into Rosalind's cup. She then informs the Earl that it'll cause her to hallucinate, which will then lead her to kill the Count. Suddenly, the king proposes a toast, declaring to everyone that he's gifting the castle to Thibaut and his daughter. Meanwhile, the Earl eagerly awaits the Count's imminent death, but to his surprise, the couple exchange their cups as part of a ritual. This causes Thibaut to hallucinate, seeing everyone deform in front of him. As he faces his future wife, he's terrified by her appearance, unleashes his sword, and pierces it through her stomach. Immediately, the effects of the concoction subside and Thibaut realizes what he's done. Believing that he was under the influence of witchcraft, he urges André to find him a wizard. Hours before his execution, André brings a wizard to Thibaut's room, disguising themselves as priests for the Count's last rites. The wizard then whips up a potion that he claims will return Thibaut to the moment just before the murder. As the two speak, André busies himself by stealing a golden pyxis. Thibaut, concerned about the potion's potential toxicity, orders André to take a sip first to ensure its safety. Once confirmed that it isn't poisonous, the Count proceeds to consume the potion as well. Subsequently, the wizard initiates a spell, transporting Thibaut and André into the depths of time and into the 21st century. They end up in a museum located in Chicago, where they're mistaken as part of the exhibit. However, the visitors freak out when they suddenly awaken. Later on, Thibaut and André navigate the museum and end up stumbling onto an elevator that leads them to a parking lot. Mistaking a man's car for a fearsome dragon from the depths of hell, they inadvertently destroy it. Moments later, the two kneel before an altar, hoping to be forgiven for using black magic. However, the police suddenly surround them. It turns out that Dr. Brady, the museum director, has contacted the authorities. He also enlists the aid of Julia Malfait, an employee who bears a striking resemblance to Rosalind. According to the police, the man carried around a bunch of items from the 12th century, which surprises Julia, as they aren't the museum's properties. She suddenly spots a ring that bears her family's coat of arms, making her eager to meet the arrested men. She quickly heads to where they are detained, and to Thibaut's surprise, he sees Rosalind in the flesh. He apologizes for what he's done, leaving Julia puzzled about what's happening. She politely clarifies that she isn't Rosalind, but Thibaut insists that she's his bride. He quickly shows her the locket his beloved gave him, saying that the hair within it is her very own. Catching up in how he defines his memories of her, Julia almost kisses Thibault, but Brady stops them. He then tells her to leave while the police beat Thibault and Andre. Just as Julia walks out, she hears the man scream, "Courage is our creed," which is her family's motto. This leads her to save the men from going to jail, claiming that Thibault is her long-lost cousin. She proves this by providing newspaper articles featuring the disappearance of the Count, also named Thibault Malfait. As the last living Malfait, Julia inherited his estate. Meanwhile, Thibault realizes that the wizard accidentally sent them to the future. It then dawns on him that Julia is not his beloved, but his descendant. Elsewhere, Julia calls her fiancé, Hunter, informing him that Thibault is alive. While Hunter converses with her, his secretary, Amber, seduces him on his office table. He then asks if Thibault knows that they're selling his estate, but Julia replies that she's not sure because he's acting quite strange. Before the call ends, Hunter insists that they invite the Count to stay with them. Later on, Julia invites the two men to come with her. The Count then explains that he's been sent to the wrong time, and she must help him return, so he can prevent a great tragedy from happening to their family. Julia plays along and offers her assistance. She then leads them outside the building, where the bustling city noises horrify Thibault and Andre. However, Julia explains that Hunter can't park in that area, so they must meet him on the other side of the road. So, Thibault courageously drags Andre outside. Meanwhile, in the 12th century, the guards are starting to speculate that the Count is up to something. As they bust down the door, the wizard teleports himself to the future to save the Count and his servant. Back in Chicago, Hunter finally meets the peculiar guests, but he drives slowly to accommodate their motion sickness. Unfortunately, things take a turn for the worse when Andre throws up into a suitcase. Finally, they arrive at the couple's house, where they are warmly greeted by Churchill, Julia's dog. Andre, however, becomes captivated by Angelique, the neighbor's charming gardener. Soon after, they enter the house while Hunter stays outside to clean up Andre's mess. Meanwhile, Thibault and Andre are making a mess inside, breaking glass, furniture, and trashing everything by accident. Shortly after, Hunter joins them, but he's shocked to see the house in disarray. He's also puzzled as to why the servant is eating Churchill's food. Eager to bring the chaotic events to a close, Julia instructs her guests to clean up in the bathroom. She then goes upstairs to have a conversation with Hunter, who is visibly upset about their unruly guests. Julia firmly reminds him that Thibault is family, which leads him to storm out of the room, only to witness the two men playing with the water in the toilet. Alarmed, Julia leads them upstairs where there's a bathtub. However, the guests pour a mismatch of cleaning agents and soaps into the tub, including a huge bottle of Chanel perfume. Later on, Amber decides to call Hunter, but their illicit affairs are disturbed by Andre, who's making weird noises on the other end of the call. Following the incident, everyone prepares themselves for dinner in a fancy restaurant. There, the servant eats the Count's leftovers on the floor. Julia insists that he dine with them at the table, but this newfound comfort makes him too bold. He starts grabbing food directly from passing waiters, stressing Hunter out. Later on, Andre heads to the bathroom, and he gets excited upon seeing the rare design of the urinals and the deodorizers. Meanwhile, Hunter explains his plans of selling the estate, but Thibault claims that he can't make a decision for a Malfait. He encourages Julia to express her thoughts, and she replies with reluctance about Hunter's plans. Elsewhere, Andre steals a raw chicken and roasts it in the fireplace, but the staff catches him. In a panic, he drops the chicken and returns to his seat, but the staff promptly follows him. Although Hunter is annoyed, Julia subtly chuckles over the situation. Later on, Andre offers the deodorizer while they wait for the car. Thibault and Julia are aware that it isn't candy, but Hunter remains oblivious and actually likes the taste. Meanwhile, the wizard arrives at the museum and he asks the guard, Mitchell, if he's seen Thibault. Witnessing how the man seemingly appeared out of nowhere, Mitchell flees for his life. Back at Julia's house, Thibault and Andre are alarmed by the TV, thinking that there are people trapped inside it. Wanting to set them free, they repeatedly stab it, but end up causing an explosion. Hunter and Julia immediately check on them, but they're greeted by the room's burnt state. The following day, Andre witnesses Angelique being maltreated by her boss. He immediately threatens the man with a knife, telling him to apologize and kiss her feet. When Julia and Thibault witness this, they stop Andre. Thibault claims that the man is noble due to the coat of arms printed on his necktie. He then apologizes to Angelique's boss, but the man immediately speeds off. The Count departs with Julia to find the wizard, leaving Andre with Angelique. As they spend time together, the servant opens up about his experiences as the Count's valet, and Angelique feels sorry for him. She then encourages him to strive for freedom, pointing out that his master doesn't even pay him. Although she's right, Andre presents the golden pyxis, revealing that he has money to spend. Elsewhere, Julia puts a sticker on Thibault, which contains her contact information in case he gets lost. Out of nowhere, a thief tries snatching Julia's bag, but the nobleman quickly apprehends the culprit by drawing out his sword. However, he suddenly wanders off after seeing a wizard, but to his disappointment, it's only a woman dressed like a witch. Thibault then forgets that he was with Julia and ends up meandering on his own. Later on, he enters a medieval-themed pub, announcing his pursuit of a wizard, but he just gets laughed at. Suddenly, a man jokingly challenges him to a duel. Much to the patron's surprise, Thibault effortlessly positions his sword against his neck. However, rather than punishing the man for his insolence, the Count decides to diffuse the tension by buying everyone drinks. Meanwhile, Julia, who's out looking for Thibault, heads to the museum in hopes of finding him. However, Brady comes running to her, reporting that another visitor appeared in the vicinity last night. Mitchell then explains that a wizard magically appeared out of nowhere. Julia quickly investigates the matter, and she discovers a locket containing an address, which she thinks is where the wizard is headed. Meanwhile, Hunter hires a private investigator to expose the truth about Thibault, believing that he's an imposter. Elsewhere, the pub owner calls Julia through the number on Thibault's sticker. She immediately heads there, only to find the Count drunk and having fun. He doesn't want to leave, but when Julia tells him about the whereabouts of the wizard, he hardly goes with her. Soon after, they find the motel where the wizard currently resides. The old man is shocked to see Julia, but Thibault explains that she's the Descendant. The revelation sparks a glimmer of hope as the wizard explains that he has developed a potion capable of returning the Count to his original time, which will be ready by sundown. With this, Thibault leaves to fetch Andre. However, as he and Julia descend the stairs, a loud sound draws them back upstairs. To their surprise, the wizard exploded, falling victim to his own magic. Elsewhere, Andre and Angelique sell the jewels from the pyxis, allowing them to go shopping and explore the city. As they dine in a restaurant, the woman encourages the servant to free himself from serving Thibault, because he's a free man in America. With the wizard gone, Julia reassures Thibault that living in this century isn't so bad, and she'll make sure to help him adjust. The Count thanks her, noting that she's lion-hearted, just like every woman in her lineage. However, Julia doesn't see herself as courageous, so he teaches her how to wield a sword. Meanwhile, Amber gets fed up with being a side chick, so she tells Hunter to take her dancing. Coincidentally, they find Angelique and Andre in the same club, so the man pretends that the secretary is his sister. As they hurriedly leave, Amber unknowingly drops her bag, which Andre picks up. Later, Angelique drives Andre home, and she reminds him to tell his master that he's quitting, so he can travel the world with her. However, when Thibault informs him that the wizard is dead, he decides to remain loyal to the Count, causing Angelique to leave disappointed. That night, Julia tells Hunter that he's returning Thibault's estate to him. Alarmed, the man tries to reason with her, but she shrugs off his opinion. Elsewhere, the police investigate the death of the wizard, but unbeknownst to them, he's reassembling the torn pieces of his body. The following day, the investigator reports to Hunter that Thibault's fingerprints don't match those of Julia's cousin. This excites him and Amber, and they begin to brainstorm how they're going to fabricate a story for the cops. Meanwhile, the wizard finds Julia's home, shocking her and Thibault. Later on, he creates the potion that'll return them to their time. As the Count prepares for his departure, his servant tells him that he won't go back with him and would rather stay with Angelique. Enraged, the Count reminds him that he's his property, but Julia intervenes, saying that the servant only wants what everyone seeks. Thibault concedes, making Andre eternally grateful. Before he runs back to Angelique, he hands Amber's handbag to Julia, saying that Hunter's sister dropped it in the club. Since she knows her boyfriend doesn't have a sister, Julia realizes that Hunter's been cheating on her, and as he enters the house, claiming that Thibault's a fraud, she finally stops being a pushover. She breaks off their engagement and beats him up with Thibault's sword, all while saying that courage is her creed. She then kicks him out, and they quickly finish the potion before the police arrive. It turns out that Hunter created a story about Julia being abducted, leaving the three with no choice but to evade the authorities. They then take a cab to head back to the museum, but they get stuck in traffic while the police pursue them. So they steal 2 horses from some officers and use them to get to their destination. To traverse the city faster, they ride the train, all while being on top of a horse. Finally, they reach the museum and they head to where Thibault and the wizard first appeared. As the old man prepares the potion, the Count says his goodbyes to Julia, reminding her to tell his story to her future kids. He then hands her Rosalaine's locket, and in return, Julia gives him a tiny hair clip for his beloved. Moments later, Thibault and the wizard consume the potion, returning them to the 12th century. Meanwhile, the police arrive at the scene a few minutes too late. Back in 12th century England, Thibault finds the halls frozen in time. To activate it, he kisses his beloved Rosalind, and everyone resumes to the time just before her murder. Knowing that Rosalind's cup holds the concoction, Thibaut offers the drink to the Earl of Warwick as a peace offering. Not wanting to drink from the cup, the Earl gets cornered towards an open window and ends up falling to his death. Following the banquet, Thibaut presents Rosalind with the hair clip, claiming it to be a gift from Julia. Although confused by what he's saying, Thibaut diminishes her inquiries with a kiss. Meanwhile, Hunter returns to the house and accidentally drinks the excess potion, thinking it's a plain smoothie. After reading aloud the note that comes with it, he triggers the spell and ends up transported to the 12th century. There, he becomes one of the Count's servants. Elsewhere, Julia goes to her cousin Thibaut's estate and she decides not to sell it. There, she meets Francois, an attorney handling the French interests. He knows a lot about Malfats, which interests Julia. Meanwhile, Andre and Angelique drive to Las Vegas to pursue their own happy ending.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.